are actually going to have an introduction. I'm going to introduce our curator, Shasha Dothan, and then I'm going to introduce each of the artists. Then I'll hand it over to Shasha Dothan to actually preview all of the works. After that, we'll go right into a Q&A, a panel discussion with our 5 artists and Shasha, who also did a work for the show. And that'll be your opportunity, all of the guests here, to start to put your questions into chat. And we wanted to make this as close to an in-person opening as we could, which is why you all get to see one another here rather than a webinar platform. So with that, definitely feel as though we can interact and talk. It is a little hard when we get up into the numbers, but we'll try and figure it out. The one thing that I ask you to do is, if we haven't already done that, please mute yourself, especially when we are going through the screening of the videos. And when we view the videos, remember that you have the option to watch it however you like. So you can either keep our smiling faces on here, or you can minimize it so that you just see the screen, and we'll be trying to do it in full screen when we go through that. If you have any questions, definitely put them in the chat and we will get to them as soon as we can. But again, I'd like to welcome all of you to the opening of A Tourist in Your Own Home. So let me start by introducing Shasha Dothan, our guest curator, and the other artists that are in the exhibition. Shasha Dothan is a Brooklyn-based artist who holds an MFA from the University of California, Los Angeles, and a BFA from Shanker College. She works with video, installation, poetry, and sound. She creates immersive experiences that connect fragments of her personal history. With an extensive exhibition history of shows across the globe from Israel to New York, California, and Los Angeles, Dothan has received much recognition for her work. Awards and scholarships include the John Baldessari Family Foundation Scholarship, the Young Artist, I think I messed up my stuff here, the Young Artist Award from the Israeli Ministry of Culture, the Philip and Muriel Berman Foundation Grant, and the Artist Residency Grant for the Vermont Studio Center. She was also an artist in residence at Mass MoCA and Birdcliff, and she is the founding member of the collective Anti-Mexicon. Shasha is going to again tell us more about the curatorial process and her thought behind putting this together when she walks us through. So let me start by introducing our first artist, that's Jisoo Chung. Jisoo is an LA soul-based artist working primarily through video and installation, and her work navigates the relationship between individuals and systems while considering one's body and language. So Jisoo, can you just say hello and wave so we know who you are and where you are?
Hi, everyone.
Perfect. And you know what? I didn't even bother to do that for you, Shasha Dothan. Could you please do that as well? Perfect. Okay. Our next artist is Tanya Zaidi. She is a painter and media artist from Pakistan who also lived in Dubai and Egypt, and she's currently doing her MFA work in design and technology at Parsons School of Design in New York, while also pursuing teaching. Tanya, will you please wave to everybody and say hello?
Hey, everyone.
Perfect.
Hi.
Thank you. Next, we have Shirin Balurchi, and she is an American-Iranian visual artist, independent curator, writer, and blogger who lives and works in Venice, California, Los Angeles, and her work talks through paradoxes of migration, identity, philosophy, and politics. Shirin, will you say hello? Did she say hello? She is. Okay.
Hi.
Okay.
Hi, everyone.
That mute button always gets us. Thank you, Shireen. And now we have with Shireen, who is, she is a duo with Ali Azari, an Iranian cinematographer and filmmaker. He's currently working as a film lecturer at Arkin University in Cyprus, and his field research is experimental narrative cinema. Is Ali with us? We were waiting. There we are. Great. Hi, Ali. Welcome. Okay, and lastly, we have Marton Robinson. He is a Costa Rican artist, a decolonian practitioner, and I'll let him explain that for you, and facilitator. He assembles installations that encourage participants to question their beliefs and prevailing social assumptions. Marton, where are you? There we are.
Hi.
Hi, Martone. Thank you for joining us. And that rounds out all of our artists in our exhibition today. So it is with great pleasure that I welcome Shasha Dothan to walk us through her curatory experience and to walk us through all the works today. Shasha.
Thank you, Erica. Thank you so much for inviting me to Curated and show my work. And thank you to May from the gallery who helped me curate everything and do everything, facilitate everything, and the website and the videos and everything. So first of all, I'm really excited and really happy to see so many people coming. And so basically when Erica invited me to start this exhibition, I was thinking about my experience as like a newcomer to the US and what it means, and kind of like feeling that in my own home country, I never really felt at home, and kind of like what it means to me to have a home and what is home means. And I started thinking about artists I like and that I feel connected to their work that I saw before, and kind of started talking to them and ask them what they think, if they would like to be in the show. And I think for me coming here, the most amazing thing is that you can find people that are from all over the world and from different cultures, different life experience, different thought, but still you all have this thing in common. When you see the work, you will see how in the end everything connects, I think. Especially coming to a new place and kind of like exploring that and understanding what this new place means for you in relation to your the country you were born and raised in, and what this place means to you and what the new place means to you. So I'm really excited to share with you all the works, and we will be able to kind of like talk to the artists later and see what they were thinking when they make the work. So I think we'll just start by watching. It's going to be 25 minutes of everyone's work, and then in the end I'll show you. So Martone's work is a 360 work. So we navigated for the show, but I'll show you in the end how you can navigate it on our website. But I'll just start by showing the work and letting you enjoy everybody's thoughts about home and immigration and being in the US in the last year. And I'm really happy to show those artists' work, because also I think it's really cool to be able, because usually I'm an artist, and I think it was really fun to be able to kind of let great artists have their say through this exhibition. So you will see each person has a unique voice and but also they're all connected. So I'm gonna share the videos and we'll see them for 25 minutes, and then we go back to the conversation.
Close it, close it. Oh my god.
Look at the window, it's moving.
I'm liberated, not trapped. I'm liberated, not trapped. I'm liberated, not trapped.
همیشه جا میموندی، همیشه عقب‌تر میومدی، نه خیلی عقب‌تر، فقط به اندازه چند قدم، اونقدری که بتونی زمان رو فقط به اندازه چند قدم میخکوب کنی. همیشه مجبورم میکردی که تو رو صدا بزنم بلند و تو نمیشنیدی، به خاطر اینکه تمام گوشت صدای موج دریا پر کرده بود. و آخرین دفعه بهت گفتم اگر این دفعه جا بمونی من دیگه نمیتونم بیام دنبالت. اما تو بی‌محابا به سمت دریا هجوم بردی و دریا از تو خیس شد، اینقدر دور شدی تا جایی که دیگه چشم نمیتونست تو رو ببینه. کاش بودی و میدیدی که همه چیز امروز همون طور شده که همیشه دوست داشتی. زمان میخکوب شده و من چند قدم عقب‌تر از بقیه به صدای موجا گوش میدم.
I'm liberated, not trapped.
In the beginning of March 2020, I brought my partner from Brooklyn to meet my family for the first time in Israel. We came from a few days in Spain and were required to quarantine for 14 days. This is my childhood room. This is where I grew up. It's the first time I'm really dating a woman. It's been more than a year. I was married to a man. I want to go back home. There are a lot of memories here. I'm lucky I found her. Or maybe she found me. She doesn't speak Hebrew. She's trying to learn. For me.
Where's my headphones?
I want to feel at home. I never feel at home. Once you start wandering, it's hard to stop. It's the first time she was supposed to meet my family and my friends, but we got stuck in isolation. At least we got to have time with my parents. My grandma doesn't know that I'm dating a woman. I can't bring myself to tell her. It makes me feel bad lying to her. My best friend had a baby. And other friends had babies too. And that's what you do in Israel when you're 30. My friend's baby is very cute.
It's like everything's gonna be alright, yeah.
Heteronormative family, I'm probably not going to have. But maybe a family.
Okay.
That's
You
it?
have nothing to worry about.
Should we do for the world?
Yeah.
I fell in love with her. I wasn't interested in anything else. Love. Why didn't I always date women? I have no answer. Does it matter? The most important thing is that I'm happy, no? Now I understand the inner homophobia.
Yeah.
And we're gonna go to nowhere.
Because I need to deal with my inner homophobia and how others see me.
But we can go for a walk, that's all I care about right now.
They want you to have an easy life. But now my life is easier.
Back to bed. Tired.
Love is love, no? My dad sang this song in the 80s in Israel, but it still ain't easy for a kid to come out. We are almost out. But now everyone is locked inside.
Okay, so that was the screening, and thank you so much to all the amazing artists. I'm gonna share my screen again with Martone's work. So we also have a beautiful website that we worked really hard on, and that's basically where the show is. So I really recommend everyone go and check out the website. And I just want to start with Martone's work just to kind of like show you that you can go and navigate, and once you wait a few seconds, the quality of the video becomes better and you can just navigate it by yourself and just kind of like explore his different view of the work. But I think I'll just start with some questions to Martone, and then I'll move forward to the artist, and then we can open it to Q&A. So just kind of like, you know, I love the layers of the work. I love your presence in the work. I love the location, you know, the slides, what you're wearing. I think always in your work, you're kind of like present. And here, in a way, it's like more settled than usual, I think. But then also in some points, suddenly you see more and kind of like feel your presence in this nature world. So I think my first question is kind of like if you can tell us a bit about the location and the story of the location, and we can start from there.
So hi everyone, thank you for inviting me, Shasha. It's amazing to be here with such an amazing group of artists and all the people who are with us today. So the location of the video is actually here in Costa Rica, where I'm at right now. So this is, let's say, my studio where I'm in Costa Rica. This is home for me when I'm out here in Costa Rica. It's actually the garden of the place I live. I live sort of in the mountains. So this is kind of like a garden, an area which is kind of close to a coffee farm. And for me, the location, it's kind of like trying to play it out, this idea of the Caribbean or these tropical geography that you would find in videos or TV shows, and how they fictionize all these spaces, right? So for me, it was kind of interesting to take the garden and try to first play with the perspective of the video and stretch out the perspective to create some another perspective in the same video, and also add these videos that are, as you say, kind of like myself incorporated in the video. And I'm always kind of like thinking in terms of masking, the masking of the body, and how when you're an immigrant, you always have to kind of like mask your body to be able to survive, and to either survive or to become part of the other, right? Or to become part of the nation or the place that you're inhabit at that time. So for me, that's kind of what it represents. And specifically, Mosquito Land is I'm trying to speculate about this area that extended during colonial times from Honduras all the way to Panama. And coming from Costa Rica, I grew up in, let's say, the Caribbean coast, and it's such a small space that I will be connected easily in a couple of hours to the north of Costa Rica with Panama and the south of Costa Rica with Nicaragua. So I'm always being able to travel and move around all these spaces. So for me, the idea of borders and they're very elusive, or they're really a fiction, and how since I'm a child, we've been moving around this area, and how all this border had been created by the, like by government or state, and what it means to navigate a space which the people or the inhabitant of those people are kind of like living in both places at the same time, and can navigate both spaces, right? And it's kind of the way I feel as an artist, right? Being in Costa Rica, and even though I'm a Costa Rican, but the idea of Blackness in Costa Rica is still kind of a fiction. So for me, being in Costa Rica, I was asking myself, as you say, do I belong here? So the history of the Caribbean and the history of let's say, Caribbean people is always this idea of movement. We somehow we came out here through slavery or through people who were enslaved. Then my personal history through the people who come from Jamaica to work on the banana fields and the railroads, and how that idea of always continuously moving to improve yourself or somehow to try to to get advantage of the place you're at. So I think that's kind of the relationship I find with the geography of the place. And also in the sense that the Caribbean by itself, I think is kind of like an entity. Like when you come to this area, you have to fight with the weather and what it means to adjust to the weather, right? When I was doing my work out here, I'm a printmaker. So I started doing prints and the prints started getting moldy and all this. So I started questioning myself if it makes sense to produce this kind of art out here and with that weather. So what I did was incorporate actually the mold in my prints. And that's the way I kind of like navigate and try to come into peace with the weather and the art I was producing at that time.
Interesting. And like, I don't know, I have a small question, just interested in the clothing. I know it's like not the most important part, but I don't know. I thought, because a lot of times you have in your work, like your body, and I was just, I found interesting that here it's like you're a bit more hidden in a way with this costume. So I was just interested in that.
Yeah, like the name Mosquito Man, Mosquito Land. So mosquito, right, is all this idea of the Caribbean and mosquitoes. So actually what I'm wearing is like one of these nets that you use over your bed when you live in the Caribbean or a place that have a lot of mosquitoes. And I created like this bodysuit, you know, I wanted to create this video first, kind of like naked in the garden, but I'm really sensitive to mosquitoes. Like if I get bit by a mosquito, it would last in my body at least for 3 days, 4 days, and it would be like this lump on my body. So I was like, no, I can't do that. Even though it would be cool to try to be in the garden all naked, I don't want to go through the suffering of getting bit by mosquitoes. So I created this kind of vest. And again, when the idea of masking myself and protecting myself and trying to mimetize with the environment, right? And at the end, it's kind of like this idea of surveillance, right? The spectator become the policing of the land and of the body at the same time. So this is kind of like a way to disguise yourself and try to just be cool in a way.
Amazing. Cool. Thank you so much, Martin. So we'll come back to you after if people have Q&A, and we move straight to Shireen and Ali. And so I did want to show their work on the website too, just so people have a reminder of kind of like which work we saw. So yeah, Shireen and Ali, thank you so much for being in the show and collaborating. And I guess my first question will be like, maybe you can talk a bit about your collaboration. And I have many more questions about language and layers, and but I think let's start with your collaboration and see where we go.
You want me to start or Ali? I can start.
You can start.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay, I would just, first of all, I want to thank you, Shasha, for inviting me and Ali to a tourist in your own home. I'm really grateful for our collaboration and for the insight that all the artists, all the artists, I'm so proud to be beside all these artists in the show, and also so grateful for the insight that you yourself is providing me with. And I would say that Synesthesia Immune was really a unique collaboration that I had a chance to experience with Ali while he was in Cyprus and I was here in Los Angeles, during the lockdown. Not to mention that Ali and I were kind of like in the same art university in Tehran during our BFA. So I was in a school of dramatic art and he was in the school of cinematography. And I would just say this so fast because this Synesthesia Immune, as I said, was made during the lockdown through this remote collaboration, and I describe it as a challenging aspirational journey, like cerebral and visceral, soft and heavy, melodic and abrasive, tender and brutal, kind of like familiar and strange, and I would also say beautiful and ugly, but yet it was a labor of love, and it was kind of like our inner two while walking into the light. And also I would say that synesthesia immune is somehow an image of a distance, which gives a reason to love harder and tells the story of how just light and consciousness would travel as far as we let it to travel. Because as an Iranian visual artist who is working and living in Los Angeles, I'm kind of like living in an exile just for speaking my mind and having opinion about the politics of my country. And so to me, synesthesia immune is somehow a poetry of that exile, and at the same time my own experience about the isolation.
Yeah, I was thinking of like I don't know exactly if it's true, but I was thinking yesterday watching it again, I was thinking about kind of like a love poem to a nation or something, or to somewhere you can't be, or yeah, so I really love that. And the music. And I can ask Ellie, I guess, like a different question, so kind of like maybe about the text, like how you wrote the text, and you're speaking in English, like which part each wrote, did you write it together, and how did you decide what in which language? And
So Ali, I'm gonna hand this to you.
You know, okay, first of all, thanks for having me here. You know, it's a pleasure for me to be among you guys. You know, it's really great, and it was such collaboration. You know, from a distance. Yeah, your question was about the text. You know, yeah, I did write it. I mean, it would be fair if I said like this whole process of doing this video was quite synesthetic in a sense, right? Because you know, because just talking to Shireen after such a long time, you know, with being away from each other, you know, such a long time. She moved to LA, I moved to Cyprus, and you know, both of us are kind of separated and you know, isolated in our own space. So when she told me about this project and she said, "Yeah, well, let's do something," you know, it was so synesthetic for me because first of all, I had to just put together all these pieces of the puzzle that I had in my head from that old Shireen that I knew before, like 15 years ago. I had to put those puzzles together. I mean, to kind of remember her. And there was this Shireen who was in the palm of my hand. You know, I was talking to her. So the spontaneous process of uh, putting together all these pieces of images, you know, from the past and present at the same time, you know, also penetrated into my poetry in a sense, you know, because the way I wrote it, you know, it just came out spontaneous like that. I mean, and I think each of those words just came out of one piece of those images that I had in my head. You know, it was a mix of all those different feelings. You know, the feelings that I had back then for her, now the feelings that as two grown-ups and two people who are just living in two separate places. You know, those feelings I had to combine, and each feeling I would translate it to an image, and then to a word, and to a musical note. So it was pretty synesthetic, and that's the reason we wanted to call it synesthesia immunes, because it was kind of our immunity.
Amazing. Thank you. I do have more questions, but I'll just say I also kind of felt really connected to the sentence, I'm liberated, not trapped. And I know it's like no, I don't know. I kind of want to ask about it. So you can answer maybe just in a few sentences so we can like move forward. Shireen, if you want to say something about that.
Sure. I would just say, as an Iranian American visual artist who's living and working in exile, and I'm really I do yearn for an unedited environment where makes it possible for me to get engaged into critical conversations and contributing to this culture of inquiry would constantly guide my growth as an artist and also as an individual. So probably that's the closest.
Totally. Thank you so much. So we'll come back to you for the Q&A. Okay, so we're gonna move to Tanya, which was the second film we watched. I'll go back and show you an image just so we can remember the video we saw. Which I even just love the first image of the work, you know. So Tanya, if you want to unmute yourself for my questions. So again, I feel so connected to your work too, and kind of like the feelings you feel about, you know, what am I doing in this new place? What am I doing in the place I come from? You also like moved a lot as a kid. So yeah, I was kind of interested more visually in how when you're in the US, there's a specific way of filming, and when you're home, there's a specific way of filming. So maybe if you want to start with that and kind of like say a few
Yeah.
about that.
What? Hey everyone. It's really good to be here. Thank you so much for having me. Yeah, that's interesting. There's definitely a contrast with the two kind of ways of filming, and that's actually because the way that this video was made was kind of like a montage of footage I'd taken over time, and it wasn't like necessarily like for this, but it ended up being that I'd taken this footage in this glass tower during quarantine as just like a way to like connect to the outside world, because it felt so like this somewhat like a cage where I had this vantage point and I could see everything going on below me. And it was in Florida, and it was really interesting being there because it was one of the states where I think they were not taking this pandemic as seriously, and there was people in yachts like blasting music outside and in their pool and just like having a great time. And it just felt so peachy and like a filter was on, when in reality that's not how I was feeling at all. And that's why in the video I said I'm grateful, because I really was grateful to be in this place. It was my uncle's home, and I was lucky I had a place to stay because I couldn't be home. But so yeah, to answer your question, the footage was taken on my phone just there as just a way to continue to be creative and record what was going on. But then I actually had the chance to go home, back home to the UAE really recently, and I had my handheld camera and I took videos of just the really heartwarming moments I had with my family when I was able to connect with them after a whole year of being separated, which was really challenging, I think. And what the video is kind of about is the sense of me kind of choosing to not go home when this pandemic started. And it was like a matter of a day when I decided, okay, I think I will return home, when the borders were all closed, and I just didn't have the choice anymore. And I regretted it a lot. And every day I was like, I could have been home right now with my family. And I had kind of rejected the idea of being home at first, because in my mind it was this idea of being in the US is where I like my purpose is right now. That's where I'm working. That's where I'm going to create these like opportunities for myself. And home is just comfortable, and like home is a place I return when it's easy, you know, and not necessarily pushes me to the next chapter in my life. So yeah, it was definitely like a push and pull between those two. And I think there's this like cool kind of tone in this glass tower. It's like really sterile, and like it's really grainy and warm, and you know, the desert where I've grown up. So yeah.
I know, I was thinking about that too, because I also come from a warm place, and I was thinking you're in this like horrible rain, which is a nightmare for people coming from, but now I know it's Florida, but still.
But it was a hurricane season, so it was raining and there was crazy storms every day. So it was, yeah, really scary and doomsday kind of scenario.
Animals and
yeah, the camels.
The rain.
I know, big contrast for sure.
So I was thinking also about the part where you talk about art, and I guess you touched it now. Kind of feeling like, you come here for a purpose and to make art and being able. So maybe if you want to talk about that, but I think we're all kind of connected to that somehow, and feeling if we connect to Shireen's liberation or, each of the artists.
Exactly. I think that part where she did talk about I'm liberated is because I think in so many ways, I think a lot of us feel like art is our sense of liberation, and by doing that we're always kind of finding a way to have discourse and continue to relate. And that's why it's so great being a part of this show as well, because I definitely feel really I don't know, it's just a good feeling to know there's so many people who have a similar story, who have things to share with a really different voice. But I think in that moment, I remember I was doing my MFA and it was online. So that felt really pointless. I felt extremely helpless in the sense where it was kind of like healthcare workers and people like that who were really important at that time. And they were the ones who were going to make a difference to what reality was going to be in the next few years. And I think I was just thinking a lot about art making and what I was doing with that, and how I was going to find reason in that, and just think about the purpose and why I was continuing to be an artist. So that was about the inward thinking aspect, about being an artist during a global pandemic.
I know.
Yeah.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Tanya. We'll come back to you for the Q&A, and we'll move to our last artist, Jisoo. Well, Jisoo doesn't need that because she made her own backdrop, so you can know who she is and what her work is.
I just made a virtual background because my name is so dirty to disguise it.
I love it so much. So I was thinking a lot about your work, Jisoo. Kind of you talk, I love the sentence of familiar becomes abstract. And I was thinking a lot in this time of the pandemic, kind of how you share your story and how each of us tell their own story, and kind of I don't know, feeling like you kind of want to go into abstract in such a tense time. And as a foreigner, feeling you want to be maybe not talk so much in a way. And I don't know, maybe you can also, Jisoo was working with a Korean writer, or inspired by a Korean writer. So maybe you can tell us a bit about her and about the text in the work.
Just a second, I'm trying to, I see you now. Yeah, hello everyone. Thank you for hosting all this. And yes, like Shasha mentioned about the writer that was a huge influence to make my video. And it was a book called Dictée, which is a French word of dictation by the artist, writer, and director Teresa Hakkyung-cha. It's Chai Hakkyung, the Korean American artist in 80s, but then died really early. And her work Dictée, it's really about the oppression, the cultural oppression, as being a Korean immigrant, and the bodies that was unspoken and voiceless. And she was fluent in French and English and Korean, so she used this for very dismantling experimentation of writing structure that combines all those three languages in one page and goes over the grammatic structure and syntax. So it's very inspiring for me, and I resonated a lot, especially last year while I was like reading this beautiful poetry, like as well as an autobiography of her book. Like, so yeah, and the book, the text, the subtitles that was in the videos, it's some of them are from the book dictate, and some of them are like my response to her sentences. So it's kind of, I was thinking, a conversation back to back in the style of her writing, and kind of like responding to her, even though the time like gap was huge. Also, what is happening in the video is like I drew a map of Los Angeles in my body, and I tracked that mark with the microscope camera, and the footages that's like really like abstract is actually footage from that microscope camera. So it's a mark of the map that I drew, and I projected that footage on the landscape of Los Angeles during night and up of the hills. And the reason that I was thinking of the structure was I thought of the micro level of perception that we are like forced in right now, which is like a pandemic, because and we are like really sensitive to touch, and we are like trapped in this room and a very like domestic space, and so like our perception is kind of forced to be really like micro, but at the same time the macro level of incidents are happening. Like for me personally, like me deciding to be married with my daring partner and like because of the immigration process, like, and also the like because of the pandemic and also the racial violence under Trump regime. So like last year, this all multitude of macro incidents that's like directly impacting my personal life and my personal body, that was like a huge source of displacement and the ungrounded anxiety that I was feeling. So this mindset of like micro level perception and the macro level of perception, and like how that's colliding. So that's like how it's like throughout my whole video I was thinking that. So when you say like when I said like abstract becomes familiar, like familiar becomes abstract, familiar was something like a micro perception that like, which is my body, the familiarity that like of self. Then the abstract is something it's hard to grasp or control or even decipher. So that kind of feeling was the exact thing that I wanted to describe in the video.
Yeah, it was interesting, and I think in all the videos we have, we're basically like kind of like our bodies are a significant thing. So yeah, and I love this part in your video where you drew the map on your chest, and kind of like, I don't know if you want to talk about the map too, and your body in the video. You're also kind of like a shadow.
Right. Yeah. So the map, like the big question when I started this work, when I got first heard about this theme of the show, like it was a whole process of trying to answer the question why am I here, right? Why am I in Los Angeles? And there's like which is my body, and here is like Los Angeles, and like that was a map, and like all things, like trying to think about the relationship of this place and myself, right? So like the process of me trying to like digest or like trying to like put it inside the like whole Los Angeles, like into myself, and then like projecting the footage that footage of my body to Los Angeles landscape. So that process was kind of like an exchange. Like I wanted belong here, and and I have attachment to this place, but at the same time, like it's not mine. I'm like still figuring out. So there's a distance to it. So that's how in the work, that's how it was formed in that way. But then of course I was thinking about the relationship of like the environment and geography and the female body. And I really like the phrase the artist Patty Chang is very connected to the climate change or the environmental impact in terms of like it's a body that's like impacted by so many things. It's not yours. It's just like so subjected to it. So in that way, I'm also thinking like how the female subject is also like moving around as or like holding a lot of things and impacted by a lot of things as if an environment or a place.
Amazing. Thank you, Jisoo, so much.
Thank you.
So I think, I don't know, if people have questions, we can open it to question. We have like 15 minutes to kind of like have Q&A. So if anyone wants to.
There's one question, Shasha. It's
Yeah.
it's a little long, but I'm going to try. And basically, it's talking about the experience of feeling this idea of being a tourist and feeling that. And the question specifically is, how do you live and work in those pluralities? So this idea of, I think a lot of what all of the artists who talked about, the memories of being back home and what you felt was home, coming somewhere else and trying to make a home, and how you shift. It sounds like back and forth. And I believe it's Zania who asked the question, and feel free to elaborate if I didn't get it all. But I think that idea of it sums it up. And how do you live and work in those pluralities?
I think my answer will be like, that's what we do. Now we live in those moments. But any of you want to answer? Anyone wants to say?
I guess I would say something about it. I'm not sure if I got the question right, but I think you know, when I thought about this video, like all I knew about this space was stories about it and just ideas of this place. And I don't know, I always have this feeling of returning home and yes, making it like feel that I belong, but how can I belong in a place in which I'm not the one who decide if I belong or not, you know, as the people who owns that place, or we believe that own that place, that allow me to be part of it. So there's always this idea of what I might want and what actually people might want out of me, and how we relate in those ideas, I would say.
I like your point.
Yep.
Sorry. Yeah, go ahead.
So, from my experience, you know, just leaving home is like breaking up with your lover, you know. So there's a reason why you break up. There's a reason why you don't want to be in that relationship anymore. But as time passes by, in years and years, all you can remember are those intimate moments with that lover. And, you know, that's the sort of relationship that we have now with our home countries or the places we grew up in. You know, definitely there's been a lot going on in those countries, especially, you know, both of us are coming from conflicted countries, you know, a lot of issues. I'm right now, I moved from one conflicted place to another conflicted place. As you know, Cyprus is divided into two countries, you know, and I'm right in the middle of no man's zone, right? So, but it doesn't matter, you know, but the idea of home, you know, as you look at outside the box, as you look at it from a distance, you know, the idea of home becomes much sweeter and more nostalgic, you know, as you keep it distant. But being there, you know, it always reminds you that, okay, this is the reason I left that place in the first place. So it's that love and hate kind of relationship for us always.
I remembered when I moved to LA, I felt exactly that. Suddenly I missed all the horrible things in Israel. Like I missed everything I didn't like. And I'm like, why am I missing those things? It's so weird. And when you go back, you're suddenly like, oh, right. Like I don't like it. You know, it's like, there is a reason why I'm not there.
I really agree what Ali and Shasha was saying about like love and hate relationship, right? And for me, like I think a lot about lineage these days. Like maybe instead of more self in a similar way, um, and it's a word that actually I really hate because in Korea it's like kind of like a prohibited word, especially in the art field because under the like so long time of military regime, like the nationalism was like really a thing that people wanted to resist. So like actually talking or grouping as like with the Koreanness was kind of something that I was refused to. And me tied to my nation and my ethnicity was something that was like considered very old, and like that's something that we have to like get over it. But then in here, when I came here, it was actually totally opposite. Like people, like a lot of like Korean Americans wanted to actually reclaim their Koreanness, reclaim their like national culture and everything, and they wanted to like be distinct, to actually have their voice, to like as a form of like resistance of like white supremacy and the colonialism, right? So like that kind of like was a kind of chaos and confusion for me, and I'm still figuring out in between that like how I should like reclaim or like organize or re-navigate the currentness in myself, and how to like how do I like um think of this notion of like lineage or the the originality of my ethnicity or something like that. Yeah.
We have another question that I think is interesting. Alex, we'll go back to you later because it's more specific to Jisoo. But I think that was interesting to me too. So Blair is saying about the writing and poetry and personal essay in 4 of the pieces. So basically everyone except for Marton. Could anyone comment if text came before image or image before text, or were they generated hand in hand? And I thought it was also interesting that like the text was a lot in English, which I thought was really interesting. And I struggle with that question myself because it's like, yes, we're here in America. It's an American college we're in showing the work, but it's like, I thought it was interesting that basically only Shirin and Ali and I have a song in Hebrew, but most of the works are in English. But the question is basically about image and text, what came first and how you work with text and image.
Shall I go first, or is it towards me or everyone
everyone?
Yeah. For me, my video, it was like really specifically from the text. So I wanted to make a work that was responding to the book. So and the conversation that I was having with the book, I wanted to make that into art. So yeah, for me, text was the first.
Shirin?
I think to me, I would love to just also add that, like, as an immigrant, we're always undone by that memory of the feel. But I also know that one does not always stay intact. So me and Ali, we are coming from a culture which is very rich in poetry. Like we have like some classic poets like Rumi, like Hafez, which just get them into a translation. It's kind of like almost impossible. But I think for me, that's my personal that's so personal to me, that to put it into, to visualize those words, it's easier. It's something that I'm kind of like more comfortable with.
The words.
Pardon?
For me,
Poetry, and you write a lot also as your part of your practice.
Yeah, but yet I think to visualize, to visualize them always comes first for me, because I would go back to our previous conversation, because kind of like it takes me to the concept of what is an abstract.
Mm. Tanya, do you want to say anything about your text? And
Yeah, I think for me it was interesting. I think this was on the more vulnerable side of art that I've made, and for me the text came first. It came from a lot of diary entries I was doing, and the image making also was happening at the same time, and I think they all came together in a more collage sense. And I think it was important for me to have a good pace to the video, where it kind of starts with this this pondering, or kind of, you know, reflecting and thinking, and then goes kind of more into the nostalgic part of it, and then ends on the reality of it. So I kind of took that text from my diaries to kind of create that narrative in that rhythm and like pace. So it was a bit of both for me. It was a simultaneous process.
cool. Well, we have Alex is asking Jisoo one specific question. How did physical limitations play into your experience making your video?
Like physical limitations.
Because I guess it's like COVID and how, because it's a lot like your home and the surrounding, right? So.
Right. So I think that's why the scenes in the video was my room and up in the hill where there's no one around, like outside, and yeah. So that was like, there was not much of like enough option to make video, like shoot. Yeah. So I think because of that limitation, I think that's also the huge part that made the work. And like in terms of the like the physical, like in terms of the footage, but as well as the like the motivation of my feelings, the anxiety, and like the trap or like displacement and everything, I think, yeah, it contributes to that too. And I actually want to add one more thought on your previous question, because you asked putting the subtitle in English, and that's also really the thing that I consider a lot in my work. And I am working on like Korean subtitles as well, and I think more and more of making a multi-languages or bilanguages of the work, as in a kind of activism of like trying not to just prioritize English, something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's hard. I saw even when you post one in Korean and one in English, and I thought that was interesting. And I made this work also in Hebrew. So I think it's like, I know it's like a funny, because I was like, should I do it in English, in Hebrew? Because it's like, it is kind of confusing to choose and what language, and like if people hear your accent, they don't hear your accent, like is it the perfect English, is it not perfect English, is it your English, is it like reversed English? Yeah.
That's the reason I chose not to put text or language in any voice. It was like, what should I do? Should I use my language, my broken English, so it was confusing. So I know sound, noise, that's it. Forget it. Easy.
I think, I mean, for us, in a sense, using the Persian language was kind of, it was used as an instrument. It was used as like an additional instrument to the music piece that I composed, because it does sound melodic to me. I mean, even though I'm speaking Persian, the language itself does have melodies within itself. So I thought, even for non-Persian speakers, just to listen to the rhymes and the flow of the lyric or the poetry can add to the melody that I'm composing or playing with an instrument. And it's funny because for me, the first thing that popped out, really hard was the music part. It was neither the the imagery nor uh, the text. It started with music. Because remembering what we had in common. Uh, First of all, it brought music to my mind, and after that, then there was the images, and eventually the text, just to just to combine them all together, and then to put the piece together. Because I think that's how you think about it. I mean, when you're thinking about your memories, they appear in their most abstract, let's say, manner. And if they're so abstract, then there's nothing more abstract than music itself. So
Yeah.
then you can translate it to text, literature, image, film, etc., etc.
Yeah. And it's definitely how you read the text is definitely very like poetic and musical, and how the sound is being like incorporated.
Just to use it as another instrument. That's it.
Yeah, totally. I agree.
I have one question specifically for you, Shasha, and then I think we're nearing our conclusion.
Did the pandemic change your relationship to time, especially when making videos? It's actually funny because I think we were stuck in 14 days, but then the film is only like 5 minutes, and already people like commented on that it feels so fast. But I think also now being so much on the computer and kind of like being on the phone so much, and kind of like I feel like this video is specifically kind of like for the computer or something, for people watching it kind of like I don't know, so it's more rhythmic and a bit. My other videos, sometimes maybe I want people to be more in the space, but here I think I did want people to be more kind of like watching it in one time, kind of like, so I think it did in so many ways, but specifically to this video, kind of like maybe wanting to be more fast, even though time is so slow. So to somehow combine showing time is not moving, but also moving really fast. So I think something like that.
Which I think is a good segue, because we always plan 90 minutes and it's never enough. I think there are lots of other topics that we could discuss. And I want to say, personally, this is one of the shows I was most looking forward to this year, and it did not disappoint. I want to thank each of you for all of the work that you've done, for helping us to be able to offer this, and for us to really think about the ways in which we're experiencing our space and our lives right now. I think we could have a whole conversation on what Shasha just talked about in terms of how you made your pieces for this particular platform, how you were hoping people would experience it, how you experienced it. So maybe throughout the year, we're definitely going to invite our artists back to talk about this, because this exhibition will be up for the duration of Hostile Terrain, which will be through the summer. And you can see all of these works on our website, and our amazing May Beatty will put the link, there she goes, in our chat. So definitely take a look at that. I think, as I said, there were lots of different themes that came out of this, but what we really wanted to touch on were the experiences that we all have of belonging and not belonging. I think you illuminated a lot of the barriers that we all experience, the connections that we all experience, but the choices that we have and don't have that make up our time here. And I think that is some of the themes that we can all leave with and hopefully contemplate as you come back and look at all of this work. So I want to thank Martone, I want to thank Shireen and Ali and Tanya and Jisoo and Shasha and May Beatty for helping us put all of this together. But I want to thank everybody for coming out and talking with us and listening to these amazing voices. And hopefully you will take this conversation and everything that we do out into the world so that we can continue to talk about things that we don't talk about. And again, in every language possible, in every way that we can. So again, thanks to all of you. Thanks to everyone for spending this time with us. Go check out this site. It will be up for a long time. And we will all put your emails on our email list because again, we're going to be inviting these artists back to talk with us, probably individually, so that they can explore their work with us a little bit more. So with that, be well.
Thank you, Erica. Thank you for inviting me and inviting all the artists and giving us such a free hand to be ourselves. Thank you.
Yes, unmute and give these folks a hand. All right.